What is going on, guys? This is Daniel, and it looks like we have a series. The Celtics won Game 5, and they did it with an impressive display on both ends of the court. And in this video, I want to focus on their offense, because from a coaching perspective, there's a lot we can learn at how the Celtics attacked the Heat's man and zone defenses. Let's get to it. The Celtics had a lot of success with their center taking advantage of the Heat switching, and it all started with Enes Kanter in the first half. The Heat often like to switch Bam Adebayo onto guards, and here we see that as he switches onto Kemba Walker, and they'll live with Jimmy Butler being switched onto Kanter, but Kanter gives them the ability to throw it inside and take advantage of the switch with a duck-in. I also like how the Celtics got it into Kanter. It wasn't with a traditional post-up. Notice how Smart is entering the ball from the top. So now it's more difficult for the Heat help defenders to come and help Butler because the floor isn't weighted to a particular side. If a defender did crash in too much, that would free up an open shooter. So Kanter has the unique ability to punish switches inside with scoring and also offensive rebounding, and because of that, his greatest impact probably came when he didn't even have the ball. So here, he sets a ball screen for Kemba Walker, and the Heat have Dragic guarding the ball and Bam guarding Kanter, and if Tice was setting this screen, the Heat would switch it. But because the Heat don't want to switch Dragic on the Kanter, Bam is in a drop, and that allows Kemba to come off and hit a 3. Compare that to this play from Game 3. Walker has the ball, and Dragic and Bam are guarding the screen, but because Tice is setting the screen, the Heat will switch it and live with the results. Back to Game 5, and this is a bit more subtle, but Kanter had an effect here too. So it's the same pick and roll with Kemba having the ball, Kanter screening, and Dragic and Bam as the two defenders, and because the Heat aren't going to switch it, Hero takes a step further towards the ball to junk up the pick and roll, and that allows Wanamaker to catch and go. Kanter had an effect in the pick and roll game, and the other thing was, he just flat out played well. So here, he gets a post up against Bam, and he schools him with a spin move. So despite Kanter's defensive limitations, which kept him off the court in Game 4, it was a good substitution by Stevens to bring him in Game 5, and also, he seemed to have inspired Tice in the second half. Tice played a much better second half on both ends of the floor, and one way he really made an impact was on the offensive glass after switches. The Heat are willing to switch smaller defenders onto Tice, and he did a good job of creating second opportunities and being physical inside. Good unselfish play, tapping the rebound to a teammate, and then he looks like Kanter here, ducking in and drawing a foul. So one of the best ways to beat switching is to punish the defense on the offensive glass, and the Celtics did that in Game 5. Tice had 5 offensive rebounds on his own, and the Celtics overall had an offensive rebounding rate of 31.4%, which according to cleaningtheglass.com is in the 84th percentile. And here, notice how before Smart even shoots it, Tice is boxing out Iguodala and he draws a loose ball foul. Boston was physical on the glass and also opportunistic. Here in transition, we have Hero matched up against Brown, so as the shot goes up, Brown knows he has the size advantage to get the rebound. Moving on, and they also thought the Celtics did a good job of getting Bam out of help position. So Adebayo is a terrific rim protector, so if you can drag him away from the hoop, that's advantage Celtics, and one way they did this was by using their center as a playmaker. So here, the ball goes to Tice, and because he's the facilitator, Bam is guarding him and away from the hoop. Then the Celtics can run their off-ball action, here a bit of a flare screen, and so when Tatum catches it, he can drive without Bam being near the rim. This is gorgeous right here. They'll get it to Tice at the top to be the hub, and then they'll run a bit of a split right in front of Tice, and they work a backdoor layup. I love this play for a few reasons. For one, against the switching defense, you don't just have to isolate to create an advantage, you can create advantages with off-ball movement and screening. And then also, running the offense through Tice keeps Bam away from the hoop, which opens up the paint. And Boston killed the Heat with this set here, so Smart gets a ball screen from Hayward, and they have Hayward screening because they want to pick on Dragic and have Dragic switch on to Hayward. Then the ball is reversed to Kanter, and while Bam isn't in the game, you can see how it could drag him away from the hoop like it drags Crowder away from the rim here. Then Boston can go high-low, picking on Dragic. So there's a lot of good stuff going on here. This is a nice job by the Celtics by getting a switch and attacking it inside, and also notice how the entry pass is coming from the top, so it's not a stagnant post-up. Here we see the set again. Hayward sets a ball screen for Tatum, and because Butler switches on to Hayward this time, that's not a mismatch and they won't throw it inside. But now we get to see the progression of the play. Tice dribbles right, and Brown will get a wide pin to his left, and here, when Robinson cheats up, that allows Brown to drive baseline, and because Tice had it on top, Bam is nowhere near the hoop. One more time we see they run this play for Hayward. He sets that ball screen, gets a switch, and now he has a mismatch with Hero on him inside. Tice is the passer, so this drags Bam away from the hoop, and it's hard to see with this horrible camera angle, but this is a well-designed play as Tatum is already coming off that screen on the weak side, which engages the low man, Crowder. And I only saw this once, but this was a good example of the Celtics taking advantage of Bam switching. So Adebayo switches on to Brown, and so what he'll do, instead of attacking Bam one-on-one, he'll execute a handoff with Tatum who will attack, and now with Brown in the strong side corner, this makes it a tough spot for Bam to help. Here he does help, which frees up Brown for a decent look. So Boston did a good job of attacking the Heat's man defense and some of the switching they did, and also they attacked the Heat's zone defense well. And this is a concept they really like this game, where here Kemba has it and Tice will set an inside ball screen, and what they're doing is creating a 3-on-2 advantage on the perimeter versus the Heat's 2-3 zone, and here when Crowder doesn't stop the ball, Kemba gets a jumper. Let me know in the comments if I'm in the minority, but I just don't like this camera angle. Here we see that inside ball screen again, and this time when Crowder comes over to stop Kemba, that allows Tatum to attack the closeout well. Again, we see the same ball screen concept against the zone, and this time to keep Walker out of the middle, Butler will ice that ball screen, but Tice does a really nice job of flipping his screen so Kemba goes towards the sideline, and Walker walks into a 3. According to Second Spectrum, in Game 5, the Heat played only 9 zone possessions, in large part because the Celtics scored 14 points on those 9 possessions, and their pick and roll game was a big reason why. Now here, Smart runs the pick and roll, and we can see it's not as effective as Iguodala can duck under that screen and stymie the play, but I like how the Celtics play off of this. They don't get stagnant, Tice flashes to the high post and gets a floater. Now, I think it's important to note, running this pick and roll concept itself wasn't necessarily the big adjustment. If we go back to Game 2, where they struggled against the zone the most, there were several plays where they ran this same concept, the problem was with their execution. So here we see we have 2 Miami defenders at the top of the zone, and they tried this same inside ball screen for Tatum, but notice where they're setting that screen, near the middle of the floor. So yes, they create that 3-on-2 advantage, but the spacing isn't good enough, which allows the Heat to help and recover. And then instead of hitting the high post, they get pretty stagnant with an ISO. Compare that to this first play from Game 5, where if we extend the lane line, we see that Tice is setting that screen wide of it, it's nice and high as well, and Walker has more space. And so while Boston has definitely used some good concepts these last few games to attack the zone, and they're doing a better job of flashing to the high post, I think what's more important is that the Celtics players are getting used to the zone, they're better positioned, they're better spaced. In Game 5 they didn't turn it over nearly as much, and they're finding the holes in the zone. Well, there you have it guys. Those were some key ways the Celtics attacked the Heat's defense in Game 5, and most importantly, I hope you learned a little bit about basketball. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.